afternoon. I'm Janet, and this is Janet's Corner here at Los Volcanes Senior Center. October 30th. You guys are getting ready for the Halloween, probably not the trick-or-treaters. My daughter wants to do the trick-or-treaters. I told her I don't get very many. Anyway, last week we talked about figurative, the proportions, and we went with an figure 8 heads high. Usually I do about 7.5. And let's see, drawing the standing figure, and talking about the hips. The weight-bearing leg will move the hip a little bit higher on the one side. If I have all my weight on the left, on this side, and then means that this side of the hip will be a little bit higher than the other. And I spent a little bit of time yesterday sketching. I was going to talk about foreshortening today, and I chose a seated figure. I have lots of different images at home, but it's best to work from life whenever you can do it. Go out there and practice sketching from life. Let's see, one year I went down to Old Town, that's it, and with the cathedral in the background, the chapel, I forgot what you call it, but anyway, it was in Old Town. Sketching that and sketching the people as they passed by, or if they were sitting on the grass, sitting on a bench. And here I have someone sitting on a bench, and I sketched it out not so quickly last night. And whenever you start sketching figures, stick with the stick figures or putting shapes together. It's a good idea to start with a stick figure, a head, and of course the torso. We're going to make this one about 7 heads high. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that can be our stick figure, simple stick figure. And the shoulders, and the arms, and of course the legs. The elbows, like over here, I drew this earlier. The elbows will usually line up with the belly button. The hands will fall below the hips. The hips right here. And from the hips to the top, to the head, about the halfway point. The hips are halfway point, hips to the head, the hips to the feet, about the same. If you ever make it to a figure sketching class, they usually start out with 2 to 5 minute poses, getting the essence of the figure. Using larger strokes, and that's possibly why I went with charcoal on a large piece of paper today, and also so that you can see it on the camera. It's a lot easier to work bigger than smaller, because once you start working bigger, you're using more of your arm instead of just your hand and your fingers moving a little pencil. And then from a about a 2 minute pose, and then move into a 20-minute pose. After that, the hour-long poses are usually either seated or reclining, because standing for an hour, that's kind of hard on the model. And today, let's see, here, I start out with a seated figure on a bench. The head, start out with shapes. The middle shape here, the leg, the arm is a bit foreshortened over here. Foreshortened, bring an arm forward. It's not going to look as long as the upper part of the arm. So we're gonna cut into it, and if I circle around upward, and then that'll move this in front of this shape. There's the arm. And of course it's foreshortened, because the hand's gonna sit right here. And I'm looking at it as a cylinder. And another cylinder, we can come over here, and then this arm is hidden behind her leg. A lot of foreshortening going on here. Anyway, let's see, I worked with charcoal on this. The vine charcoal is really soft and very liquid. Liquid meaning that I can take, I can remove the charcoal very easily. The vine charcoal is usually about, let's say 1/4 of an inch thick, and then and you can find vine charcoal that's much thinner. And it's not gonna leave a very heavy mark. If I push down on it, I can get a pretty heavy mark. And then with the compressed charcoal, you can get a very black mark. If I come in here, as you can see, there's a lot of difference between this and the vine charcoal. But the vine charcoal is really nice to start out with because you can easily erase it, move it around. But if you're doing small sketches in the park, you probably do several on your page. And I like to break my page up into squares. And say I got a page like this, and then I'll break it up into squares and then sketch my figures within those squares. And then later on I can develop a drawing or I can develop a painting using that figure. And the pose, whatever pose, let's see, the one I chose, she was sitting, thinking, contemplating, and reading that pose, getting your viewer to read the pose and connect with the subject. I have another, I traced it out and thought I was gonna do at least 4 of them to show progression, but I wound up doing a couple last night. This one I threw in some value. Most of it's done with fine charcoal. And at the last minute, I put in a little bit of compressed charcoal down here. The background, I tried to keep a little bit lighter so that it will fall back. More contrast with the figure and things that are closer to you. You want more contrast. I can even take a white chunk of pastel and with the lighter areas come in with the white pastel and hit it. And whenever you're drawing a figure, it's much easier if you have a direct light source. This one was from a photo with diffused lighting. I'm gonna run it down here. And then all of a sudden, she's separate from the background. And I'm gonna put the light on this side of the face. This side of the face that's closer to you, closer to the viewer. And to get those mid-tones, I'm gonna push the black into the white or the white into the black. I can blend them if I wanna blend them to get that mid-tone. Or just keep the page with vine charcoal. Next week, probably, let's see, work with some pastels, different colors. I hadn't talked too much about color lately, color in the previous videos. most of it's black and white pencil. Today with the vine charcoal, the compressed charcoal, you can get charcoal pencils, those are nice. And what else was I gonna mention? Okay, one, you capture your figure with a stick figure or shapes, using shapes. Of course, the charcoal gets all over your hands. It's kind of messy. And pastels are sort of messy, the dry pastels. And proportions, going back and measuring your proportions, constantly checking your proportions. And then defining your shadow areas, I did that. And then modify your contours, come out your contour line, which defines the figure. And I started out with pretty straight lines, defining the shapes. And then I go back at the end, I can throw some curves into those lines. Like that. And as you can, let's see if I did that. Nope, these lines are pretty straight, defining the figure. But I can go in and I can add work on the contours. And also, modeling the figure, creating that roundness, that volume is whenever you have your lights and shadows playing against each other. Your lights, like I said, working with the figure under direct lighting, it's a lot easier than diffused lighting. And always keeping your background a little bit lighter, or not too much going on back here to fight with your subject matter. You want her to stand out against everything else. That's getting close. And next week, I think I'll bring in some pastels and talk about the figure. Oh yeah, we're gonna draw some hands and feet. And the hands, you'll see a lot of foreshortening. Especially if I'm reaching out towards you, you're not gonna see my hand like this. You're gonna see the ends of my fingers and the top of my hand. Pretty much it's just gonna, you'll be able to see an oval with fingers. You're not gonna see a full hand. And let's see, I don't think I'm forgetting anything else. And anyway, everybody have a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next week. Thank you, Maria, Michael, and Arsenio for having me here, and have a good one. Thank you.